Hello and welcome to Asia Gaming Brief's face-to-face series. Joining me today is Martin Purbrick. He's a director of Purbrick Associates and consults on a variety of risk-related issues with a special focus on sports integrity and sports betting. He's currently chairman of the Council on Anti-Illegal Betting and Related Financial Crime at the Asia Racing Federation and was formerly the director of security and integrity at the Hong Kong Jockey Club. Today, we're going to be talking about the incredible surge in illegal online gaming that came about as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And also, we're going to be looking at some of the ways that governments around the region may be able to tackle this. We also look at the impact on sports integrity. Hi, Martin. Thank you very much for joining us. I wanted to start with asking a little bit about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on illegal gambling. Have you seen an upsurge?
Illegal betting operators and illegal betting websites were quicker to, or certainly more nimble, I think, because they're less regulated or not regulated. So certainly more nimble to offer alternative betting products. And that's why I think illegal betting increased during the early stages of the pandemic, certainly. And what we've seen looking back on this from our work with the Asian Racing Federation is that illegal betting operators pretty quickly ramped up their betting product offerings in alternative sports, such as esports, virtual sports, alternatives to establish major leagues or competitions, and other sports that are not usually popular for betting. And as I said, I think that's because they were able to do so, whereas illegal licensed betting operators struggled to do so more quickly. And what we found, trying to make this a bit more tangible about that level of increase, illegal betting on horse racing and other sports just in Hong Kong. So one city that has a pretty strong betting market, we estimated increased between 10 to 20% during the pandemic in 2020. So we have multiple data points to come to that conclusion. But what we think that equates to in Hong Kong only is 2 to 3 billion Hong Kong dollars increased in profits for illegal betting operators, illegal betting websites. So that's not turnover, that's profit.
And you just touched on esports a moment ago, but were there any other sort of areas of sports that were particularly vulnerable?
So the online illegal betting market was quick to offer alternative sports. And just to sort of run through them, as you asked, esports, definitely. Virtual sports, which is obviously not someone playing a sport or doing anything, but a simulation of a sport, which is a bit scary, I think, for integrity purposes. Live dealer baccarat, which is pretty popular in Asia. And then the sort of whole run of online casino games, blackjack, roulette, slot machines, etc. All of those are easy to deliver through online operators, and there was a great deal of customer interest. The alternatives that came out to major football betting leagues that ceased playing were also a bit scary. So we saw a lot of investment in football in Belarus, or Belarus, I should say, pronounce that properly, Nicaragua and Turkmenistan. Now, obviously, that's not the UK Premier League, sorry, the English Premier League or La Liga or any of the major leagues, but there are betting markets. People will bet on whatever the sport is if you create a market.
Maybe just explain exactly why somebody placing an illegal bet creates issues for sports integrity.
So there are two aspects to that, I think, in placing the illegal bet. Obviously, the retail customer who puts $100 on Manchester United to beat Chelsea through an illegal betting website isn't creating an integrity risk. But those illegal betting websites, certainly in Asia, have such huge liquidity from the mass markets in Asia, from the growing mass retail markets in Europe and elsewhere, also from significant professional players who are going through illegal betting websites, and this churn that's creating such huge liquidity on illegal betting websites. So anyone seeking to fix a game or competition or simply manipulate that competition, the place to go to do so, able to gain from the betting on the outcome of that event, the corrupt outcome, is illegal betting websites in Asia, largely because that's where the liquidity is.
You were just mentioning a while ago where a lot of these alternative sports were being played. But in terms of hotspots in Asia itself, where these operators are based, where are they operating out of?
There are, as I said, black spots that have helped to grow that level of illegal betting in the past 2 decades. Macau is a particular problem. So Macau obviously isn't a hotspot or a black spot with a large customer base for illegal sports betting, but casino junkets have been involved in online betting for some time. And that's changed and developed as well over the past few years. A number of the major junkets operate sports betting through very diverse websites. I won't go into which ones for obvious reasons. Most junkets provide settlement channels for the settlement of bets through sports betting. So it's like a banking service, frankly, which is quite troubling. If we want to look at the black spot or the hot spot, I think we have to say China, because obviously that's where we have this huge population with very limited access to legal sports betting and gambling products. Obviously, Macau has been successful because it's the only legal point in China where you can go and gamble. But there aren't physical gambling opportunities in China, and there aren't as many sports betting opportunities. You know, we have the welfare lottery, the sports lottery at national and provincial level. They're very successful, huge turnover at national level, certainly. But it still doesn't satisfy customer demand. So because there's an insufficient legal market in China, there is a huge illegal market. And just to give you some figures, in 2020, during the pandemic, which really illustrate this, the Public Security Bureau arrested over 75,000 suspects involved in cross-border illegal gambling. 600 were taken from abroad, so repatriated from various countries by the authorities in Philippines, Malaysia, Myanmar, and Vietnam.
And as you mentioned, China is trying very hard to crack down on this, but yes, it's having some success. At the end of the day, what do you think actually needs to be done?
Well, the same thing that's been done for many years, certainly in jurisdictions where they've recognized the problem. And I can highlight them. Hong Kong is a leader, obviously. The Hong Kong Jockey Club has led, I think, the understanding of illegal betting and why it poses a far greater threat to society than legal regulated betting. Australia, which is probably the world leader, because in Australia, from national to federal to local level, national to state level to local level, they've had a very joined up policy approach, collaboration between government at the policy setting level for sports and gambling, regulation of gambling, sports authorities, and law enforcement. And
you mentioned in all of those markets where they are successful, they are regulated or have gone some ways towards regulation. So is that the answer? I mean, is China ultimately going to have to regulate?
That's a complicated question. So I think regulation is actually part of the problem. And as we look at this, which we have done through the Asian Racing Federation for quite a few years now, there is an absence of effective regulation in most jurisdictions. So there are clearly some well-regulated jurisdictions such as Australia, UK, Hong Kong, but this regulation or this regulatory structure that's emerging in certain hubs and offshore locations where a license is granted on a paying basis is not regulation. So, take, for example, let's say CityBet, the illegal betting exchange in Asia. If CityBet were to have a license in the Philippines, Cambodia, or Curacao, it doesn't make it a legal betting operator. The problem is that too many betting operators are still seeking these paper licenses, if you will, from locations like that, Philippines, Cambodia, Curacao, and then pretending that they're legal and licensed. And they're not. Clearly, you have to be licensed in each jurisdiction at the point of sale where you take bets. And the largest global legal betting operators in the world are doing that.
And you mentioned Japan. I mean, obviously, there's quite a bit of interest in there. It's a $65 billion market is the figure that's been sort of bandied around as far as the sports betting is concerned. What would you like to see if they are going to move ahead and regulate that market? What would you like to see them do to make sure that you've got a really robust and genuinely regulated sports betting market there that might even set the example for the rest of Asia?
Certainly in terms of sports betting, I think it is valuable to have international expertise in any market, because sports betting markets have become global as sports have become global. It's no longer the case that customers are only interested in and only betting on their local sports product, whether that's horse racing in Japan or other sports in Japan. But they're interested in sports everywhere. So there has to be some injection of expertise. And I think there is a model for that. For example, the China Sports Lottery has a partnership with the Hong Kong Jockey Club to operate sports betting on football. And that's an injection of international talent with a very experienced operator into what we just said is a very closed and difficult market to enter. So there's a little bit of a model there for other jurisdictions such as Japan. They don't have to undermine their own existing monopolies or duopolies or those operators that are closely tied to the government, but they can find a way to bring in international expertise through the firms that provide that international expertise and reinvigorate their sports betting markets, but at the same time, keeping them within the sort of risk appetite of what their government and regulators expect.
I mean, obviously, the big leagues are back playing again now in Europe. Are you seeing any sort of change in that online illegal gambling that you were seeing during the pandemic? Is it still there? Is it still going up, or has it sort of leveled off?
What I think worries me is customers in many regions went to the illegal market during the pandemic because they were offering products that were attractive, and there's a customer stickiness to this. So some of those customers don't go back to the legal market. Many do. In fact, I think most do, because there is a customer loyalty. Customers betting on sports want to get paid their winnings, which is very sometimes difficult in the illegal market. And so they go back to those big brands that they like. And I think customers do have a lot of brand loyalty in online sports betting, but there'll be a certain percentage of customer stickiness in the illegal market.
Thanks for joining us today. Please tune in every Friday for Asia Gaming Brief's face-to-face series, our interviews with leading figures in Asia's gaming industry.